The state where a human is one with nature is his lost childhood. We once had it, but will never again. Although we may accept this fact, there is still something in us that yearns for nature. A certain drive that acts like impulse. At the very least, we use nature as our guide and as our inspiration. We see this in objects. We call it biomimicry. But it goes further than that. It goes further than simply copying shapes and forms we find in nature. We copy principles, systems, ideas, which to many of us are more important than material mimicry. No matter how much we try to bring nature closer to us, it's only an imitation of the real thing. It's artificial. Parks, zoos, aquariums, botanical gardens, the countless green skyscraper and green city concepts. It's all fake. The truth is, we care for nature that is far from us, when all the hazards and dangers that might harm us are far away, and all the technology and comfort, or rather the artificial, is right next to us. It is the artificial idea of nature that we seek, or rather a certain ideal, not the nature as it really is. We have also learned that these comforts and this technology don't come without their own sets of challenges and problems. Even more than that, these problems have begun to overwhelm us. The enthusiasm that people once had for the future is nothing more than a fantasy of the past, and that is the truth that transcends politics and ideology. We hate modernity. We hate this state that we live in. We hate how artificial and complicated it is. We wish for simplicity, unity with nature, and peace within ourselves. This wish created a worldview which I'm sure many people today sympathize with. The unity with that ideal of nature and all of the benefits that come from it. That is the goal of this worldview. To reject modernity and to return to nature. One German philosopher addressed this very problem, this tension between the artificial and natural, and the rejection of the artificial, even by his contemporaries. This philosopher was Friederich Schiller, one of the leading Romanticist philosophers, and a good friend of Johann Wolfgang Goethe. He is easily overlooked by more famous philosophers, but I found his answer to this question insightful. Schiller was in love with nature, yet he advised against hatred of the artificial, what he called culture. He claimed that culture has its uses and advantages, which we have to recognize and enjoy. Furthermore, we need to distinguish between evils of culture that are just in its nature, as opposed to the true evils which infest it. He claimed that we should only hate those true evils. For Schiller, although it may be tiresome to constantly be the victim of human interaction, you need to accept this as what it is, as a part of the very nature of culture. Whatever you might think of it, you should simply accept the age you live in, and try to strive to an ideal, despite these evils, despite the challenges. As he states, be clean in filth. Despite it all, search for peace and unity. However, that doesn't mean we should ignore nature. For Schiller, nature should always be our guide, especially in the matters of morals. It should be our guide to reaching this peace and unity within ourselves. Instead of a complete rejection of the artificial, he aimed to mold it with nature as his guide. This doesn't only mean creating objects inspired by nature, but by changing the whole of society, art and people, to be more like nature in the conceptual sense. He left things pretty abstract, and it's hard to interpret exactly what he had in mind. But I'm sure someone will at least find this train of thought interesting. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.